My name's Joseph, and I'm here because while I was at university, two of my friends were stabbed in London. One in the abdomen and one in the neck. Now, they were both very, very fortunate to survive their injuries. And I didn't really know this at the time, but it would start a 4-year journey that leads me here in front of you today. I've got two goals for this presentation. The first one is to tell you about the amazing device that we're creating. And the second one is that all of you should be able to walk away and know how to stop bleeding from a penetrative trauma. But before I do that, a small introduction. My name is Joseph. I'm an international award-winning product designer from Cambridge, UK, and all of my professional experience has been in medical device development. I started my career by designing rapidly manufacturable ventilators, part of the UK's response to COVID, along with my colleagues Emma and Nathan, and then I returned to university to really focus on that problem that was very close to my heart. So, this is knife crime, and in fact, all penetrating trauma, be it gunshot wounds, construction accidents, blast injuries, the problem is significant. Globally, it's thought that nearly 1.5 million people bleed to death every year as a result of violence-induced penetrating trauma. And sadly, here in the US, nearly 200,000 people are injured or killed by firearms every year. This carries a significant financial burden on the US economy, over $530 billion impact a year. But there's a very critical person in this problem, and that is the vast and highly skilled network of first responders in this country. In fact, nearly 4.6 million heroes that every single day are saving lives, and these are the people that need better tools to stop bleeding. However, civilians are often the first people on the scene, and please imagine for a moment that this was you. I think you would be able to take action to stop bleeding and save your fellow citizen. And I want to briefly illustrate this with a different example. So this is opioid overdose. It's another massive problem across the world, and here in the US, over 81,000 people died last year because of overdose. I'm bringing this up because I bet you'd be surprised to learn that a very similar number of people bleed to death every year in the US. And so some of you will have heard of Narcan. This is an absolutely wonderful product. It can be used by anyone to stabilize an opioid overdose. It's available from most major retailers, costs about $40, and in 2023, more than 2.1 million prescriptions were sold, according to CDC. Now, for the same price as a haircut, why wouldn't you carry with you a tool that you could use to save a life? And this leads me right back to the reason I'm stood in front of you here today. So after my friends were stabbed, I went back to develop a better tool to stop bleeding, something that anyone can use and could be available in vending machines. So what do I mean when I say better tool? Well, a tool needs to do three things in order to be a good tool to stop bleeding. It's obviously got to be fast. That's self-explanatory. It's got to be simple to use, but an interesting one is easy to remove. I feel like the first two, as I said, pretty self-explanatory, but why easy to remove? Well, when a patient arrives in hospital, a trauma team needs to have rapid access to the injury site, so navigating and removing that device is critical. This is especially important in mass casualty events where trauma centers really struggle with patient throughput. So the three most important things: speed, simplicity, and ease of removal. And it's a huge pleasure to introduce you to the balloon occlusive barrier, or BOB, which we've seen can stop bleeding in under 30 seconds. Let me show you how you could use it to save someone's life. First, you would insert the BOB into a penetrating wound. By removing the cap, it then expands, so it activates and it uses mechanically stored energy to expand, applying internal direct pressure to the wound, which stops bleeding almost instantly. It's so quick, it's so simple, and paramedics love it because it's hands-free. It applies that pressure to the point of bleeding for you without requiring further manual pressure, allowing them to progress with treatment and transportation. Surgeons love this because it's easily removable. So instead of breaking into small clumps and taking up to 3 hours to remove, like some gauze-based products, the BOB shrinks down and can be removed in one piece in literally seconds. Another very key value proposition is that the device maintains blood flow down a limb. So unlike a tourniquet, which as you put it on, it stops all the blood flow. And this can cause massive complications, even death if left on too long. We're seeing that in Ukraine a lot at the moment. And to really see this in action, I want to show you some images that we recently presented at the London Trauma Conference. So on the left, this is an angiogram. That small plume is actually a massive, massive catastrophic bleed. And this is in a junctional region, so it's up here. This is the brachial artery of an adult pig. This is currently nearly impossible. In fact, nearly 20% of all bleeding deaths in Afghanistan were caused by these junctional injuries. On the right, you can see the bob inserted. It's this white thing here. You can see that there's no bleeding around the outside. And a really important point is that you can see that the brachial artery is still sort of flush with the contrast. So that is continuous blood flow down the limb, which is going to be absolutely revolutionary for trauma care. Now, to achieve this amazing hemorrhage control, we've invented a completely new material that allows us to apply pressure internally to a wound uniformly. And we've seen a huge amount of interest from surgical colleagues about the use of this material for other specialisms. So we're very pleased to have built a IP portfolio containing 4 pending patents and 1 granted patent. So the work we've done so far has brought us around 1 year away from FDA submission. For our regulatory strategy, we've worked with NAMSA to identify a suitable predicate, so we're targeting a 510K pathway. We're obviously targeting the established first responders as our first market. So initially, that will be through a direct B2B sales organization. And we're, as part of our go-to-market strategy, we're organizing pilot trials at the moment with some world-leading pre-hospital institutions, including trauma networks in Baltimore, Chicago, and Houston. Now, we owe a huge amount of those early customer relationships to our amazing clinical advisory board. This is chaired by Dr. Robert Sikorsky, who's the head of trauma anesthesiology at the Johns Hopkins Hospital. Also supporting us is Colonel Carl Remick, ex-USA MRDC and a real trauma heavyweight, and Andrew Nauman, who's actively serving special advisor to the US Air Force for the Pentagon. We've built our internal founding team of medical engineers and clinical researchers. Emma, Nathan, and I have all worked together at Cambridge-based design consultancies where we've worked on over 20 medical device projects collectively. And Nikki joined us after over a decade as a military nurse and clinical researcher in the NHS. So after multiple tours, treating penetrating trauma on the battlefield, I can't think of anyone better to lead our device evaluation. We're also very, very fortunate to be externally supported by marketing advisor Malcolm Nason, who worked on the marketing strategy for opioid overdose medication, commercial advisor Marcus Barkham, serial CEO for pre-hospital startups, and clinical strategist Rebecca Ray. So, to get this far, we've raised a pre-seed round of $1.4 million, and we're now very happy to be raising our seed round of $5 million to take our device to market. So we're going to be completing our clinical verification, finalizing FDA approval, and then launching with the Maryland Trauma Network. So to recap, although my friends were very, very lucky to survive their injuries, millions every year do not. We've got some really exciting ideas to stop bleeding, and our first product, the Bob, can stop bleeding in less than 30 seconds from nearly impossible to manage junctional wounds. We envisage every EMS member, fire department, police officer, prison guard, military service member, even teacher, parents, and potentially you having access to this life-saving device by the end of 2026, but we need your help to make that happen. We're raising our $5 million seed round now, so if you're interested in helping us, please get in touch. Thank you.